So my best friend Jiro and I are always making ridiculous bets, ones that often lead the loser to do something quite embarrassing. No matter what, though, whoever loses accepts their loss and does something the other orders them to, which is how I found myself in my current situation. After betting Jiro I could beat her in a game of horse, I lost. She then informed me what I'd be doing. I'd be working as a maidservant for her upcoming party. I asked her exactly what that meant, and it was exactly what I thought. I'd be wearing a full maid's uniform and going around cleaning, serving drinks, and taking care of whatever else the guests or Jiro needed. Honestly, it wasn't the worst thing either of us had made the other do, so I was down for doing it. I went into it with confidence, but I'll admit, after she got me dressed and did my hair and makeup, I was a bit embarrassed and nervous about this whole thing. After getting me into proper maid attire, Jiro immediately began to issue commands for me to follow. Of course, she was mostly playing. She would just act like some rich snob, telling me to do things like sweep the floors, set up the tables, pull the good wine out, and so on. As the loser of the bet, and not one to be a sore loser, I played my part as the loyal maid and bowed and followed her commands. Honestly, even being in a dress wasn't that bad, and the two of us had the party all set up in a couple of hours. After that, we chilled on the couch watching television until the first person rang the doorbell. Jiro smiled at me and clapped her hands. She ordered me to answer the door and let her guests inside. I nodded and stood up, but as I approached the door, my embarrassment and nervousness returned. I was about to be wearing a maid's outfit during a public event. I sure hope the people Jiro invited don't know me, and if they do, I hope they don't recognize me. I open the door and bow as I greet the guests and welcome them to Jiro's party. I then pick myself back up and see who's at the door, and finding that out nearly made me pass out. Of all the people to be here, it was my friend Kyle. I went silent as I looked at him, and I could feel my face turning red. I kept wondering if he already knew it was me, or if by some miracle he didn't recognize me. He just stared at me blankly for a minute before asking if he could come in. I panic a bit but apologize to him and tell him to come right in. He stepped inside and I followed him as we both went back to see Jiro. He goes to sit, and Jiro asks me to go fetch them each something nice to drink and to grab one of the platters we prepared earlier. I bow and say I'll do that right away. Then I run to the kitchen to collect my thoughts and try to think of a plan to keep Kyle from recognizing me. It was one thing doing this with Jiro. She could keep a secret, but Kyle would tell everyone and never let me live this down. I pour 2 cups of sparkling water and 1 of soda since I know that's what Kyle likes. I then put them, along with the platter, on a big serving tray. I pick up the tray and head back to the main room. I stopped before entering because I heard the two of them talking. Kyle had asked Jiro who I was and why she had a maid working for her. Jiro lied and told him that I worked for a maid service and that my boss owed her a favor, so to pay it, I was helping out at her party for free. Kyle said that made sense, and then he asked what my name was. My heart dropped as I thought Jiro might tell him my real name, but she's not that mean, and she came up with a fake name for me to use. So for the rest of the night, I'm Fallon, an elegant and very shy maid. Honestly, though, it's a cute name, and the sound of it is quite nice. As I was lost in my thoughts, he said something else to Jiro, but I didn't catch it, so I decided to finish the task I was given last and bring them their drinks. I walk in, and immediately Kyle looks at me and smiles. I set Jiro's drink in front of her, and then looked at Kyle. I told him I had sparkling water, but if he preferred, I also had soda for him to choose from. He seemed surprised and said I was a good maid for anticipating his wants, and said he'd prefer soda over sparkling water. I placed the soda in front of him and then placed the platter of food between them. I then asked if there is anything else I could do for them at the moment. I was expecting another command from Jiro since she was technically my boss at the moment, but instead Kyle asked me to do something. He told me the television was looking a bit dusty and asked me to clean it. I looked over at it, I swore it was clean, but right now I was on maidservant duty, so even if it makes no sense, it's my job. So I excused myself and go get a duster. I then returned and started to dust the television while Kyle and Jiro watched me. As I cleaned the television, Jiro and Kyle kept asking me to clean different spots around it, and they had me on my tippy toes and bending over. I knew that Jiro was just having fun at my expense, but I had no idea why Kyle was having so much fun. Then, at one point, Kyle asked me to come towards him, and I did. He then took one of the slices of cheese from the platter and tossed it on the floor behind me. He then asked me to pick it up. I was confused why he did that and honestly a bit annoyed, but I did it. As I bent over, I heard Jiro giggle and looked behind me. I turned bright red as I finally pieced together what Kyle was enjoying about this whole thing. I picked the cheese up and nervously excused myself to go throw it away. Once in the kitchen, I toss it in the trash and hold my face. I couldn't believe it. Kyle had no idea it was me. He really thought I was a girl, and he was clearly into me, or at the very least interested. As I sat in the kitchen, completely embarrassed and ready to bail out for the first time in my life, the doorbell rang again. I heard Jiro call out to me. Well, she called out to Fallon, which was my fake name. I walk out and turn towards the front door and quickly go over to it. I knew Jiro would say something if I kept her guests. It would only be in good fun. But Kyle was here, and I didn't want to give any reason to make this more humiliating than it already is. I get to the door and open it. I bow and greet the guests, and when my head comes up, that's when I realized things were going to become more humiliating anyway. There at the door were my sister Doris and her boyfriend Benny. I gulp and quickly turn to try and hide my face as I gesture towards the living room. I tell them both that Jiro is waiting inside for them. They both thank me and enter, but Doris stops in front of me and asks if we've ever met. I shake my head and say no, and she just stares at me for a minute, then shrugs. She said I must be right, as I was super cute and she'd remember someone as cute as me. She then followed Benny and both of them went and joined Jiro. I stand there wondering what's going on. First Kyle, now my sister and her boyfriend. Jiro is friends with Doris, Benny, and Kyle, but something about this feels off, and I need to figure it out. I ask Doris and Benny what they'd like to drink, and both seem surprised and ask if I was actually a maid. Jiro answered, saying yes, that I was, and that my name was Fallon. Benny said it was so cool that Jiro hired a maid for the party, and Kyle agreed with him. After that, the two of them told me what they'd like to drink, and I went into the kitchen to get it, but there was something else I was after. Jiro's a pretty organized person, so she would have sent out invitations and expected a response back, which meant they were here somewhere. After looking around the whole kitchen, I finally found the responses to the party. I pulled the bundle of notes out and then pulled out the last piece of paper, which was the entire guest list along with check marks on who was coming. As I read the list, my heart started to drop more and more. Every single person on the list was someone I knew personally. Friends, family, people I work with, and worst of all, even my girlfriend were on the list. This was an odd party for Jiro to have. She definitely wasn't exactly friendly with all of them. Something was going on, and I fear it has something to do with me wearing this outfit. There was no way she was going to out me as some sort of prank, right? What am I going to do? I can't stay here. I need to leave.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Also check out my Patreon and DeviantArt pages. There you can find all my public stories. You can also support my work by getting early access to all stories, exclusive content, and even commission me to make you a custom story. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day.